There he is.
What? We did it.
We made it work. Thank you,
The
sir.
boom,
Appreciate
the
you
boomer.
joining me today.
There's a problem with interviewing boomers. We're like I'm sure if my kids were here, they go, Dad, dumbass. This is how it works. So I was on the laptop and it wasn't working on the laptop. Look at me. What do I know?
Hey,
So.
no worries. Well, you made it. So first, I'm going to turn off the comments in a minute because it gets distracting. But I just wanted all the folks to see you before I turned off the comments. Let me turn the commenting off, and then we'll get into it. There it is. Todd, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Appreciate you guys giving us the time. Hopefully we can answer a few questions from people here today. Have a good time with it.
Absolutely. So my primary audience is DC fans. That's who I primarily cater to. So
you came to the right place then.
Exactly. So I got a lot of questions for you from the DC folks.
Okay.
First of all, I'm gonna go right for the jugular, go right into it. People ask me to ask you about side eyes. They love the side eyes. They want to see more side eyes. Is that a possibility? I'm being sorry. I'm joking, but no, like that's one of the questions that was asked. Like, hey, what's going on with the figures? Why are there side eyes? For me, I'm cool with
I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why, it's always frustrating to me that people want less interesting stuff, right? From my perspective, right? Sure. Hey, I want the ball joints. I don't care if the muscle structure gets ripped apart. Hey, I want this bend in the chest. I don't care if it looks ugly, right? I'm an artist first, right? And so I come from everything from an art point of view. I hear the comment. We're not going to go as severe a side eye. We'll center most of them. But from time to time, I think it needs to go off center because it just, there's a realism to it, right? There's just a little bit of a realism to it. Otherwise, to me, there's a mannequin look. There's too much of a mannequin look to toys. And I try as much as possible to get away from it. That was the attempt. Obviously, we overcorrect it. So we'll dial it back. Let me just say we'll dial it back. But again, at some point, I have a different concept of what I want out of my toys compared to others. But anyway.
Well, I'm fine with them. My wife gives me the side eye pretty consistently. So, it works for me.
No, we did it. Part of it was we did it, I thought, with good results with a lot of the sports figures we did for years.
Okay.
Because those guys were always in constant movement, right? So again, if you're playing basketball, right, you could be dribbling with your right hand, you're turned to the left, but you're looking to the right because you're going to make a pass, right? And what it conveyed to me at all times was if somebody's looking in another direction, they're indicating that there might be somebody else in the room instead of just mannequin straight on. But maybe it doesn't quite work for superheroes as much as it does for sports that is in constant flux, if you will. So I've got the comment. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna be dialing it back. So.
Well, hey, you're always trying to, I feel like, get that balance between the figure looking artistically pleasing, but also like functional. I lean more of the statue pose personally. That's what I like because they're just sitting back here anyways. So that's what I go for. But hey, teach their own. The next thing I want to ask you about is this guy, this beast of a vehicle that you released to us, which is
cool.
It's freaking awesome. I love this guy. I mean, it's huge. It's comic book accurate. It's fun. I'm just curious, like, are we going to see more of this? How did it do? If you're able to talk about it at retail, like, and how did this come about?
If I'm trying to remember, I think that by the time we got it done and then the pandemic was coming and it got complicated and it comes in a big box and the price is up. So it got, sadly it got lost. Let me just say that for what I thought was kind of a cool item.
Yeah.
Again, it's not for everybody. Just because you collect figures like you have behind you doesn't mean then that you need all the accessories, especially something that big, right?
Right.
But I mean, you've got one. Once you hold it in your
Yeah.
hand, I don't know. Every now and then we do stuff that just reminds me of when I was a kid and why toys are so cool, right? I think this one has a little bit of that in there. So, are we doing more vehicles? Yes. Even if they're just things like motorcycles and things like that. And then I just saw literally yesterday in plastic form. I mean, because I saw the prototype and I saw sort of a test, but I saw it like
Yeah.
with the right colors on it. A couple of other things that we're doing that we haven't announced yet, but once we do, they may be the two funnest things we've ever made. Again, it won't be for everybody's cup of tea, but they're so goofy that I'm hoping a lot of people go, I just got to have it. It's so dumb, it's fun. So
I love it. Well, yeah, I love this thing. Honestly, I wasn't gonna pick it up, but then when I saw it at the store, I couldn't resist. And
where'd you get it at? Where'd you get it at?
it was at Target, so I picked it up
Okay,
at Target. Yeah,
yeah.
so they made it
So
out.
I know a couple people took it, but again, we didn't get it as wide a distribution as what we had originally hoped.
Hey, but it was at least it's out here, so that's great. So speaking of play sets and vehicles like that, I know with the Batman 66 line, you released the awesome Batcave, the
Yeah.
awesome Batman 66 figures. What was the response like, for those? Were the sales good? Do you see yourself doing other lines other than Batman in that specific scale as far as
The answer is yes to all the above. I again to what I just said earlier about
yeah,
the fun factor, right? I thought that the Batman 66 had that, right? It's a cheaper price, so again, if moms who are looking to basically get something and not need to spend 20-25 bucks on something, they can still get a Batman figure, cool, and get it out the door at a cheaper price. The Bat Cave, again, I thought it was goofy, but goofy in a good way, right? You got all that plastic. I'm not doing all the fancy paint job on it. You put on stickers, and it's all the stuff that I remember again in my childhood. And we've got it. I know that we've got another wave coming out because I just saw a couple of the prototypes the other day for some of the characters. So if anybody's really a big Batman TV sort of collector, you're not going to be disappointed because we're going to go pretty deep into that line. But at some point, you're going to kind of run out, and then the question is, so how do we sort of backfill it? We've had the conversation of, that let's just call it sort of retro, classic look, whatever you want to call it, nostalgia, right? That seems to be somewhat popular. It has a place, I think, and even if it's just because it's half price a lot of times,
yeah.
because it's not super articulated, not super painted. It's just reminding you of something is a fun toy. So yes, we've got big plans in that vein, that sort of retro vein coming down the pipeline. Yep.
Nice. And then when you do like scales that are different, like the 66 line versus your 7-inch line, how do you like communicate that with the stores? Do you have to convince them to buy the 66 line? Is this another scale, or is it pretty easy to get that into stores and on to online retailers?
We're kind of fortunate that we got a couple buyers that are kind of geeks, which is always fun. It's not
Nice.
always it's not always true. So what that means is that usually the meetings you have with buyers are not as entertaining as people may think they are.
Yeah.
It's usually pretty dry. They're just like, okay, you're doing Batman 66. We assume they're going to look good. We assume there's going to be a value. We assume you're going to pick the right characters. What's the price and when you're going to deliver it? right? I mean, it gets very robotic.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, when we're doing the sports, they never asked me once who's going to be in it. They just were like, "Is it going to come out in January? Yes or no?" Right? Or whenever we said we were going to put it out there. So that's they're mostly concerned about not having bare shelves, and they assume I'm not going to try and make something that I can't sell. And so they put the onus on the people who are selling toys to them to make and do all the research and basically do all the polling so that we're doing figures that either the average consumer wants and or the fan base wants.
Well, so it's not this thing where you're going in with some fancy presentation and like why trying to convince them to do a Riddler or anything like that. They're like, all right, just
no. I've told my salespeople, if you spend more than 5 minutes talking about the art, you're wasting your time, right? Because although it's sometimes that's the hook. You show it to them once, and they go, "Oh man, that's super cool." But after that, it literally is just, can you fulfill our stores? Can you fulfill the product? Can you keep the price? Can you get it moving? Because they're now thinking about spreadsheets and they're off the art, right? What I have to try and do is go, can I come up with something that I think will sell to you and I and your fans and the people listening right now? And the perfect one is it still looks cool enough that the moms and the kids walking by it will react to it also, right? So if you do a cool robot, they don't have to know who that character is. They don't have to know anything about it, but in package, it looks super awesome, right? I'm telling you right now, Man Bat's going to look awesome in package. So it's big, got lots of detail, whatever. So a kid walking by can go, "Mom, look at this big giant furry dude with big giant bat wings." They don't even have to know who that character is. What you have to understand is that it just look good up on my shelf, right? I mean, we've done plenty. I mean, people have been buying some of the DC Multiverse right now. They know that I would argue some of the coolest figures are not necessarily even close to being the most popular in the comic books.
Right.
But they look good in plastic, right? Sometimes we just pick them because you just go, that looks good. I don't care if anybody knows who that character is. That's going to look good on a shelf, like on a peg, compared to some of the other stuff, right? Better than doing Commissioner Gordon in a long trench coat. I'll take the guy that looks like a robot.
No, absolutely, and obviously you're succeeding. Congratulations on the sales and the awards you recently received. So that's awesome.
Not me. The people listening helped us get there. So.
Oh yeah, they do. They absolutely do. I'm part of that too. I mean, I don't have much of a savings account. That's okay. This will pay for my kids' education one day. Another question I had, Todd. So you've done a great job of converting stories like the Three Jokers, Death Metal, and really taking material out of here and creating beautiful artistic figures that's pretty close to what you see in the comic books. Do you see that continuing? Are you going to be pulling more from across the DC universe versus just the Batman line? And what are you excited about coming up?
Well, look, you can imagine you're dealing with a company, DC Comics, been around since the late 30s, right?
Right.
So there's a vault of 80 years of things that we could potentially pull from. Now, some characters are more popular. Some comic books are more popular or more well-known, something like the Dark Knight or the Killing Joke or whatever else, even in recent, the Three Jokers. So we're going to continue to look at all of those and say, who haven't we made that has a good-looking costume that would just be a good-looking toy, right? That either somebody hasn't ever done before, or if they did do it, maybe it wasn't quite as cool. And it's time for us to do it. And the thing is, when we do, there's two different kind of comic book toys we make. We make the ones that are specific to a panel that we just go, hey, we're making that Greg Capullo cover. And we're doing that. We're trying to hit that. Then there's others where we're just saying, hey, there's Aquaman, and he's got this costume, and 25 artists have drawn this guy in this costume. let's not be a slave to any one of those unless one of them really sort of piques my interest. Let's just do the coolest version of that guy in that costume that we can. No different than if I was drawing it. If they said, Todd, you're going to be drawing Aquaman, here's the costume, I would look at what everybody else had done, and then I would do my own version of it anyways, right? I wouldn't copy somebody else's drawing. And so sometimes I have to remind my sculptors not to be so loyal when I'm giving them reference, because I go, I'm not giving you the reference because I want it to look like that drawing. I'm giving you the reference to show you where the straps are and where the belt is and where the gun attaches and where the gloves go. And now let's do the fun version of that. I don't think anybody's made the gloves thick. If I was drawing it, I'd make the gloves thick. Let's do it, and let's hand it in and see if the good people at DC and the Warner Brothers will sign off on it. So from the very beginning of my relationship with Warner Brothers, I kept sort of asking this, hey, Green Lantern's cool, but his costume is kind of bland, right? I mean, when you get right down to it, if you do the official classic one.
Yeah, it's very simple. Yeah.
It's very simple. Do you mind if, like, in some of the green and in some of I cut some lines and add some little details and just, and I know maybe that there's no panel that you can find, but I'm telling you, it look cool. And they were gracious enough to go, yeah, let us see what it looks like, right? They didn't say yes or no. They just said, well, show it to us, and then we'll tell you. And they're going, yeah, that does look kind of cool. And then, we're putting the stuff out. They're not getting any blowback. The sales are going good. And so they're saying they're giving us more freedom to be a little artistic. No different than, again, if I was drawing those characters. I'd be doing the same thinking in my head, right? And that was part of the conversation I was having with them, that they're going, well, Todd, it's not really like this. I'm like, yeah, but if I was drawing it, whoever hired me to draw it right now would say, Todd, draw it the way you want to draw it. God bless you, right? So why does it matter whether it's on paper or it's in plastic? Let's just have fun. In this case, let's make it look good at retail. If it looks good in the package, hopefully it'll look better on your shelf. And so we need to make it look as interesting, cool, fun, sexy, whatever word you want, at retail as possible, because we're in competition with, hundreds of other toys in that aisle on that exact same moment.
Absolutely. And kind of speaking of your own artistic spin on things, so we've gotten the Todd McFarlane Batman, the Todd McFarlane Wonder Woman. Can we expect a Superman? I expect next, maybe the whole Justice League, or do you have time to be designing any more figures yourself?
Yeah, I've got some ideas and some that I've showed them, and then some are sort of iterations of what's already there, and then some are just like over the top. I think this would just look wicked. I would want this toy, right? And who cares if it's never existed? Who cares if it doesn't look like anything? Like, I'd buy that, right? So let's say off the top of my head, if somebody was a fan of, let's say, Appleseed, right? What's an Appleseed look of Flash look like? From my perspective, really cool, really cool. Now, I know that maybe he doesn't exist. Can I show you an Appleseed inspired Flash or whatever? I'm making it up, right? Yeah. So I'm coming up with crazy stuff now. And because at some point we're gonna run through, a lot of the characters that people wanted to see up front, and how do you keep it going? And part of it, I keep telling DC and Warner Brothers specifically, is I think we're just gonna have to put out some stuff that is just good looking toys, and who cares whether it's tied to a movie and or a comic book, right? Because think about it. Two of the very first toys we made in our license, right? And we've only been doing this for a couple of years, but two of the very first toys in the very first line are what I call Batman in armor and Superman in armor. I don't know if you remember them. They were in the
Of course.
box.
Yeah.
They were bursting out. They were so big that they could barely fit. And that's, you haven't even put the wings on them yet. Right? The Batman suit, I think, had been on 2 pages in 1 issue.
Yeah.
And the Superman one had been drawn in 2 panels. One of them, he had his back turned. Right? So for me, I'm just, oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, I went dead there for a minute.
No
so to me, it didn't matter that those characters had only been on 1 or 2 pages. What mattered, they just look good at the store, right? Like, what are you talking about? Batman in an armor suit, it looks good. Put it on my shelf with the big wings, it looks good, right? Like, and again, let's get out of the way, because just because you collect those toys behind you doesn't mean you basically buy all the comic books, if any. Right. You can actually be a toy collector and read 0 comic books. So it doesn't mean that people are as knowledgeable about these characters as we are, DC and Geek Todd and my staff. I think people are making almost visual decisions on some of it, saying, do I want that? And is that cool? Look, can I sell, let's say, Miracle Man? Is he super popular? Not really. But if I make a good-looking Miracle Man, could I sell him? I hope so, right? And why? Because somebody's going to come along just saying, man, look at that crazy color, yellow, red, and green. It's like some weird Christmas color meets, Homer Simpson. And mismatch, and I don't know what it is, but I collect DC, and that looks super cool. I'm going to get it. And not really even know who Mr. Miracle is. I said Miracle Man, sorry. Mr. Miracle. And to me, it's okay, right? Toys can just be toys visually, and characters can be characters. And just because a character is popular doesn't mean that his costume is cool. And just because a character isn't popular doesn't mean that you can't sell it, right? So
yeah, no, that's why I bought toys. That's why I bought toys when I was a kid. I didn't read any comic books. I just saw them on the shelf. Oh, that looked cool, and ended up buying it. So that is sound. Yeah. And just kind of speaking.
Okay, look at you did, and let me. You just said it, and I believe there's some of this, and everybody who's listening right now to us, there's still a little bit of 8 and 9-year-olds in us that we haven't let go, right? And it's the piece sometimes that when I'm in rooms with business people of all likes for my last 30 years, it's the piece that sort of I have to remind them, why are you doing that, Todd? It doesn't make sense, Todd. Why doesn't that, and I'm just going, because you forgot what it was to be 9 years old. Like, just stop for a minute and remember, and now ask yourself, is that cool? And that's why we're doing it. You guys are thinking about branding and continuity and all these other big buzzwords that I know that you guys get paid a lot of money to do, and I understand it, and there's a value to it, and you guys are doing a lot because you guys are all billion-dollar Fortune 500 companies. God bless you. But sometimes cool for the sake of cool is enough. And you take cool, you give them a lot of plastic, which is why big characters always sell, and you put it at a fair price. I can sell that all day long. And you don't even have to have a brand to it. Now, if I can do all 3 of those, cool, plastic, price, and put a AAA brand on top of it, woo, well, right? And we're seeing the results of it with the DC Multiverse. One of the reasons for the success, let me just tell you what one of the simple reasons is. The big companies, and Lego does this. So if you sort of think about Lego, they have to reuse like a certain amount of their pieces, and they're not allowed. They have budgets, and they can't do all that. So they can't even think about doing all the iterations of Batman. Maybe people are saying, Todd, you're doing too much Batman. But I'm telling you, the other guys can't even get close to it because they can't spend the money on making new molds over and over and over and over. Because we were having conversations and they're going, you want to do that character, or you're going to have to cut a new mold. Yeah, no, I know that. You're going to cut a new mold? Uh-huh. Well, but that character over there is also going to need a new mold and new steel. Uh-huh. And you're going to cut one for him too. Yes, I'm going to cut new steel for a lot of these guys. Like, what are you talking about? And then I'll reuse a little bit, but and what that does, what that allows me, and here's where there should be no shock, it allows me to make characters nobody's made before. Because if everybody has to have Batman's chest and legs and Superman's arms, you're limited very quickly as to what characters you can make. If you basically throw that model out the door and say, we're just doing the cool people, who cares whether we got to cut steel, right? Does it complicate my life? Of course it does. But I'm not a Fortune 500 company. I'm not public. I do not have to maximize profit. I can just make fun stuff that I would collect for myself. That's okay. And oh, by the way, if it costs me more money and I make less, there's only one person that suffers on that equation, me. And if I'm okay spending my money on molds, let's go spend money on mold. Like, I don't care. I don't care. What I care about is putting toys out there that will be exciting and hopefully will appeal to the fan base and that they'll buy. And if the only way to get there is to make and cut new molds, then that's just part of the cost of doing business. Done.
Absolutely. And speaking to your partnership with Warner Brothers and DC, obviously they're happy with what you're doing. You know, you see the results. I'm curious though. I know we've noticed it, right? The lack of guns, the lack of weapons on some of the figures. Yep. I can only imagine, is that something official from them? Like no more guns, basically? Is that something you see changing, or can you speak to that a little bit?
No, I mean, every company has to do what they think is in their best interest, right?
Yeah.
And so I long ago stopped worrying about it, right? Name's Todd, only rhymes with God. I know where I start and stop in all the equations. And so you go to companies, it's their product, right? They're the client. The client's always right. And you basically, ask them. If they say no, you give them your reasons why, and you educate them. And I find that usually cures 80% of no's. But then sometimes they're just things that companies do, and it's just, you're not going to move them off their mark. And so you can either get frustrated about it, or you can say, hey, this is the challenge in front of us. How are we going to solve it? How are we going to solve the challenge that goes in there? So that's it.
No, that makes sense. And kind of speaking more of the relationship with Warner Brothers and DC, when it comes to character selections and the characters you choose to do, do they have a lot of input? Are they telling you what to make in some cases? Or is it you kind of presenting, hey, this is what I think we want to do? Or is it sort of like a little bit of both?
At the beginning, it was pretty together. And there was a lot of deep conversations, whatever else. We've now gotten their trust and their confidence, right? And I knew that was always going to be part of the equation, right? They're never going to let you run until you basically prove to them that you can walk, right? And so the first 6 to 8 months, I had to prove to them that we could walk, we could do it, if you just give me a little bit of breathing space, let me do a little bit of cool stuff, I think it'll sell, and then all of a sudden it goes a little bit further, because at some point I'm just like, you hired McFarlane Toys, let us do some of the McFarlane part, right? But now it's mostly us sort of giving our recommendations. I mean, obviously they vet it. And they come back and they say, yeah, we love the line, or they're saying, hey, you know what, we were thinking this character might be better, or this villain might be better. And then we sort of have a conversation, and then we end up at our list, and then we go out the door, right? But everybody's busy, and if to some extent, if we are geeky enough that we can sort of put these cool lists together. They also know what movies and video games and big event comics they have coming way ahead of me.
Yeah.
And so that's where they can come in and be really, valuable to sort of let me know so that we could have stuff so that it times out, just like when you have toys that are synced up to the release of a movie. The same can be true for syncing up to a video game and or a big comic book release or something.
Well, that's awesome. And kind of speaking of this more characters and diversity and things like that, I know like DC has the whole Milestone universe. There's a ton of female characters. Has been more thought about like diversifying the line a little bit more and getting some of those figures from like Milestone out there? Like Static Shock, those kind of guys.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I hope I don't get in trouble for what I'm about to say. Is that I don't think about those things. What I think about is, can I sell this figure?
Yeah.
Period. And so it goes like this. It goes superhero figures are up here, right? Superhero figures is like your big one. Sadly or not, depending on your point of view, male superhero up here, right? Yeah. Then there's a drop, and it's not a little bit of a drop. It's a giant drop.
Yeah.
The giant drop then goes to like villains and stuff like that. Some of your big sort of, your Thanos or your Darkseid or, Jokers or whatever. And then at about that same range, sometimes a little bit less, depending on who they are the female figure, right? So female figures, at least from my 30 years experience, they just sell at a fraction of the figure. Again, is Wonder Woman going to sell? Will she ever sell as good as Batman in the boys' action aisle? No. Can you sell a ton of Wonder Woman T-shirts and hats and dolls in other aisles? Of course you can. I deal with boys' action figures. That's the aisle that I'm dealing with, and so I have to realize who I think is walking down that aisle. Right? I'm gonna say I don't think this is a stretch. A lot of boys, right? That's why they call it the boys' action aisle. And so to me, I just go, what's the character, and can I sell it? And if the choice is between doing Man-Bat, not the most popular guy, but it's a bat. It's a big giant creature monster bat. And the 20 most popular female superhero, I can sell Man-Bat way more. Why do I know? Because I've been doing it for 30 years. And here's I think a little bit about the nature of little boys. Here's what I think that we like. And it's kind of been this way for a long time. We like monsters.
Yeah.
We like heroes. We like dinosaurs. and we like robots.
Right.
Right? Oh my gosh. And then I guess, some girl toys, right? So but what are you talking about? We just want monsters and creatures and heroes, and it's just alive and well in us, right? It's why Transformers works. It's why Ben 10 works. It's why, G.I. Joe or some of the other lines that work, or even Marvel. I even tell people, I go look at what's selling even on the Marvel end, right? When Miss Marvel is out as a movie, right? Those toys are still backed up a little bit, right? Yeah. Every Captain America is gone. Every Hulk is gone. Every Thor's gone. Every Spider-Man's gone. J. Jonah Jameson, Perry White, Commissioner Gordon, old men in trench coats or whatever. Like, what are you talking about? A kid is sitting there going, okay, Mom, Dad, you're going to bring me home a toy. I can't wait because I got an A on my last test. And you bring home Commissioner Gordon or Indiana Jones? Like, what are you talking about? Because, you were 8 before. You're just going, okay, Mom, no, I appreciate it. Dad, I appreciate it. Thanks for the old dude in the trench coat. Before you leave, can I just ask you a couple questions, Mom and Dad? Did they have any robot toys there? Oh, yeah. Sure they did. Yeah, no, there's Transformers. There's this other one. This other cool line. Okay. Did they have any monsters? Oh, shoot, monsters. Yeah, they had Godzilla versus King Kong. Shit, it was all over the place. What about superheroes? Oh, my God, you've just seen all the Marvel and DC stuff. Okay. And so you're 8, 9, and you're going, but you chose the old man in the trench coat for him. Like, talking about that's a collector's toy, right? Commissioner Gordon is a collector toy. Come on, I've got plenty of them in my Spawn comic book. And so you got to come up with cool stuff. And unfortunately, the female figures are sell at about the same rate as villains. So, I mean, there's exceptions, obviously. Yeah. If you get, let's say a Batgirl or a Catwoman from time to time, Wonder Woman. I mean, there's a couple, but again, even on their best day, they'll never come close to Superman and Batman.
Right? By the way, I have one of your trench coat figures right here. My wife was like, why did you get that? I'm like, it's the Penguin. It's like, that's a guy.
Yeah, well, okay. So, no, and that's a good example. An old dude, fat dude in a trench coat. Okay, not really probably what you want to take home to your kid, right? So here's how you solve it. You just make sure you don't make a lot of them, right? And then what happens is you and I, we're collectors. We know which ones are hard to find. And we go, the Penguin, because the Penguin's going to be sort of the one that they produce the less, because you're going to be able to find Batman all day long. We're going to make lots of Batman. And so you sort of go to the other ones. What's always interesting, the 2 toys that I could always sell, the hero, the main hero, and then the one that we made the least of, whether it was a villain or whether it was a guy in a trench coat or whether it was a female figure, whatever. The one in the middle that was sort of, that was always the one that ended up being what we call peg warmers for the most part, because the geeks aren't going, oh my God, it's going to be the hardest to find because we know that's in low supply and it's going to be a good eBay figure, if nothing else. Bam, grab it. Superman, Batman, your AAA names, you're going to be able to sell those 365 days. And then the ones in the middle are sort of the ones that become just a little bit more difficult to sell, because you go, do you want the hard to find or do you want the AAA guy? And the middle ones are sort of the third choice. And so those are the ones that sometimes have a tendency to get backed up. So it's a balancing act with all of it.
No, and it makes sense. Speaking of like just selling to like direct market versus retail. So I know one of the things you announced during the winter showcase was the page punchers.
Yep.
A couple questions there. First of all, is that through the DC Direct brand or is that through the McFarlane brand?
I think it's the DC Direct. I think it is DC Direct.
Yeah. Okay, so will those be then available at retail, or are those more for like comic book shops and things like that?
No, they'll be at retail.
Nice. Okay. Well, first of all, those look awesome.
Let me tell you. I at some point I should do a video of all this stuff I got sometimes laying around my office. Yeah. Those little guys that are this big, because I've now seen like 12 of them.
Yeah.
They're super cool, right? I mean, there's something about, they're kind of army man size. And maybe, again, I'm just going back to being 8 years old. I was just like, oh my gosh. And I had a bunch of them. And I said, at some point, we're going to have to do some kind of Costco, Amazon, I don't know, whatever. We're going to have to like get all of them at some point, and you can like get all of them in one big giant fat pack or something. What I affectionately call the farm animal pack when I was a kid. Do you remember this one?
Yeah.
You get a horse and a chicken and a cow and the 2 pieces of fence and a pig in a trough or something like that. And you go, I've got the whole ranch, right? Even though it was just like a handful of pieces. Yeah. And it's that flat box, that wide flat box, right? Like a pizza box. Those are cool too. I don't know. Those little guys are pretty awesome.
No,
we're going to be doing some with Spawn too.
No, I mean that's good to hear. And I mean, I was excited to have company for my little Hulk guy here. So I'm glad it's going to be similar to scale. But just speaking about DC Direct, so I'm just really curious, how did that relationship start as far as like you kind of taking over for them, and now I see it starting to blossom a little bit, and we're hearing
Yep.
more announcements. Like, how did that all come about?
DC was not DC. Warner Brothers, as a big company, was sort of realigning what they call reorgs. They call it the short term, the hip term, reorg. Part of because AT&T came in, and then part of it because of the pandemic. You saw a lot of this with a lot of companies,
Sure.
right? Everybody had to literally adjust on the fly. Because part of whatever the thinking was, and I had no insight into it, they decided that they basically didn't want to be doing DC Direct themselves. They wanted to push it out and basically treat it like they do with 1,000 other licenses they have, right? Whether it's T-shirts, hats, video games, stickers, coloring books, whatever, right? Push it out. And so we knew it was coming out, and we had the conversation with them that you already got Spin Master is out there, and then you're going to have McFarlane, and then if you take the DC Direct and give it to somebody else, you're going to have three companies essentially sort of scrumming over the same characters, doing the same things. Somebody's going to come in. You got some inventory. They're just going to either dump the inventory and cheapen your brand and whatever else. And it's like, I don't know. If it was me, and maybe I'm completely biased, I would give it to somebody who's already invested in your universe, that will help sort of nurture it, and now just use it as an add-on and can get into different places, different price points, do statues and do some stuff that's different that people are used to. And I guess we were persuasive enough that they said, yeah, you handling both of those pieces, especially they could see the success of the DC Multiverse.
Right.
Yeah, you know what, we like what you're doing, and we think this could work in tandem, and so that's it, and we'll see how crazy we can get with all of it.
Well, honestly, I'm a big DC Direct fan. Like, I think 70% of these figures, next to yours, of course, are DC Direct. Are you going to be doing more of the 7-inch? Like, I know I see some of the stuff that was like probably produced by DC Direct that never got released that I see you guys are doing. Any plans to continue like the animated line and the like essentials lines, as far as new figures go?
I think DC Direct can be a place where that character that might not make the cut at retail,
yeah,
would work at DC Direct, because again, I think it angles towards the collectors a little bit tighter, right? Yeah. And so I think we can creatively do things that we might not do if we're saying that we've got to sell X amount of units at Walmart or Target or Amazon or something like that, right? So.
That makes sense. Any plans for like a Dr. Fate helmet? Any one-to-one replicas, either from DC Direct or from McFarlane? I mean, I know we got Black Adam, which we saw a tease for, so really excited about that. Any thoughts about that as far as like one-to-one replicas?
Yeah, we have a couple that are in the works. So yeah, we're gonna try a couple things and see if there's a hunger for it.
Yeah.
And we'll let people tell us. But I'm like you. I think masks and cowls and face things done right can be appealing. I don't know that it's a big marketplace, but I think it's a fun item to have, and we should probably dabble in that. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I know we only got a few minutes left. I want to let you go this evening. I just got to ask you, how do you keep going, man? You're like the ultimate hustler, the artist. You became a businessman, and you're still going strong, bringing on new licenses, new ventures, the NFTs, things like that. Do you get any sleep these days, Todd, or are you just pretty much...
No, so I'll go back to the beginning of the conversation, and I've said it out loud, but I think it's worth repeating. I've met and been in rooms, sometimes one-on-one with people like James Cameron and Steven Spielberg, and these people that are big creative names that we all know, and have done dozens and dozens of classic stuff. Some people would dub them as geniuses. And I, even Stan Lee, even all the way up to 94. And the one thing that like just those three men had in common, and I'm hoping not that I'll ever get to their magnitude, but in terms of just DNA, is that when I was with all of them one-on-one, they all reverted to 10-year-olds. I am telling you, it's true. The reason they can do this stuff is because they still have this boyish wonder in their 60-year-old bodies, right?
Yeah.
And so what's driving them sometimes I think is just pure youthful adrenaline that they haven't lost. They haven't lost it. And we do ourselves a bit of a disservice as adults of just sort of saying, hey, when I was a child, but now as an adult, I got to put all things away. I not all of it, right? I mean, there's a time and a place, but it's okay to still just hold a little bit of that youth that's there. So how do I keep going? Because I like I said, I see that big giant truck you got, and I just saw with one of my guys the other day 2 toys we haven't shown you yet, and we were geeking out. We were laughing in the room, and a couple of the sculptors went and go, what's going on in here? We go, did you see this toy? Like again, like we were practically on our knees, pushing it around on the floor like 60-year-old, and we just haven't lost it, and I think it helped get you past a lot of the nonsense of business part that has to be tied to get all of it out to the shelf. Because if it's just about what are we going to do so we can sell X amount of units so we can make X amount of money, I don't know. I leave that to other companies, especially public companies, right? They're the ones that count all the dollars and maximize dollars and shareholder value and all those other things that they're obligated to do. I'm a small private company, and I just get to wake up and say, wouldn't it be cool if we did this, and attempt to do it, and it's good for the soul, at least for me. It's a good recipe for me. I don't know if it would work for anybody else, but it's good for me. And oh, by the way, I've seen guys. I remember meeting Stan Lee for the first time, when he was in his late 50s, and I marveled. Even I was 16. I marveled literally at his energy. I was just like, oh my gosh, if I can have half the energy of that man when I'm his age, and then I saw it, he kept it for another 40 years, right? And so, I don't know, maybe to some extent, maybe I project that a little bit. They're going, you see that old man Todd? He's still goofy and bounces around, and I don't know. It keeps you youthful and healthy. I hope. So how do I do it? That right? Because if it was just about making money, I'm so disinterested in that. I have gone into meetings now, and I've got lots of people in a room, business suits and whatever else, and they start talking to me, and I go, guys, can I just cut everybody off? The least interesting piece of this conversation is money. So let's just put that aside. Let's talk about the cool stuff. Because if we do the cool stuff right, it will sell, and the byproduct will be money. The money comes because we're going to do our jobs right and enjoy it. Let's not worry about counting the money first, right? So.
Well, Todd, you definitely live that, man. And before I let you go, just thank you for making such awesome DC products. I know collectors, we complain a lot. We bitch a lot about ball and articulation, but at the end of the day,
that's okay. It's okay. As a matter of fact, I keep saying there should be some big panel I want to be on with a bunch of people that we have completely different views on it, to just almost like a smackdown of talking about toys. I think it would be I think it'd be an entertaining panel for people because
Oh, absolutely.
they'd be picking sides of like, yeah, I'm just sitting there because we're very. I don't get too upset about because everybody's just passionate. And oh, by the way, everybody has their own personal taste of what they want, right? I get it. What I can't do, unfortunately, is give every individual what they want individually. What I have to do is the best that I can that I think will appeal to the most amount of people at any given time. And sometimes you get it, more right, and sometimes you get it wrong, and then you recalibrate and you keep going. And luckily, I've been doing it for over 30 years now. So fingers crossed. Hopefully, I'll be able to do it for another 30.
Well, I hope so. And again, congratulations with the DC license and all your success. Looking forward to what you do next. And I'll let you go, Todd. You have a great evening over there. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and everyone who's watching. So thank you so much.
All right. You guys be good. Thanks for everybody's support. I hope to see you at the convention when we get back to normal here a little bit.
Absolutely, Todd. You have a good night, sir. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.